Captain stood at the observation window of the Neptune station, staring into the dark void of space. He had been doing this job for 20 years now, watching the galaxy from the edge of human territory. His hair had turned gray during those years, and his eyes had seen things that most people on Earth would never believe. The station was quiet tonight, just like every other night. That was how humanity wanted it. Silent, invisible, safe. Behind him, the monitoring equipment hummed softly. Doctor sat at her workstation, her fingers moving across holographic displays as she analyzed alien transmissions. She was younger than, full of energy and ideas that he sometimes found troubling. She believed humanity was making a mistake by hiding from the galaxy. Knew better. He had read the reports, studied the history of every species that had joined the Galactic Council. None of them were truly free anymore. The alert sound broke the silence. Looked up sharply, her eyes wide. Moved to her station immediately, his heart rate increasing despite his calm exterior. On the screen, new signals appeared. Many signals, too many. "Captain, we have movement near the border zones," said, her voice tight with excitement and worry. "It's a council fleet, a big one, at least 200 ships, maybe more." Felt his stomach drop. For 300 years, humanity had maintained its isolation. They had quietly destroyed council probes, redirected their diplomatic ships, and ignored every attempt at contact. The council knew something lived in this region of space, but they had never pushed too hard, until now. "Get me a full analysis," ordered. "I need to know their trajectory, their weapons, everything." His fingers flew across the controls. Data streamed across multiple screens, ships of different designs, representing dozens of alien species that belonged to the Council. Massive carriers, sleek destroyers, and ships whose purposes could only guess. They were all heading in one direction, toward Earth. "There's a transmission," said. She looked at, waiting for permission. He nodded. The alien voices filled the room, speaking in their own languages. But the station's computers had been listening to council broadcasts for centuries. The translation appeared instantly on the screens. Read the words and felt a chill run down his spine. The council was debating what to do about humanity. Some species called them primitives who needed guidance. Others called them a potential threat that needed to be controlled. But they all agreed on one thing. The silence had to end. They would force humanity to make contact, to join their galactic community, whether humans wanted to or not. Immediately sent an encrypted message to Earth. It would take hours to reach even at the speed of their quantum communication systems. In the meantime, he needed to keep watching. He needed to understand what humanity was facing. Continued decoding transmissions. As she worked, she spoke quietly, almost to herself. "This could be our chance, Captain. We could finally meet them, finally learn from them, think about what they could teach us." "I am thinking about it," replied, his voice hard. "I'm thinking about the species. They joined the Council 200 years ago. Now their entire economy is controlled by Council regulations. Their children learn Council history instead of their own. Their military is disbanded. Their resources are shared whether they want to share or not." He turned to look at her. "Is that what you want for Earth?" His face flushed, but she didn't back down. "Not every species in the Council is suffering. Some of them are thriving. They have access to technology, to trade routes, to knowledge we can only dream about." "At what cost?" asked. "Freedom, identity, the right to say no." Before could answer, another message arrived from Earth. It was from Ambassador Minu, the man who had dedicated his entire career to maintaining humanity's isolation policy. The message was brief and clear. Earth's leadership was being briefed. A response would come soon. In the meantime, all observation stations were to remain on high alert. Knew what was happening on Earth right now. The United Assembly would be meeting in emergency session. Minu would be standing before them, showing them the same data was seeing. He would remind them why humanity chose silence all those years ago. It had started 3 centuries ago, when humanity first developed faster than light travel. They had burst into the galaxy full of hope and excitement, ready to meet their neighbors among the stars. But the first thing they discovered was the Galactic Council, and the more they learned about it, the more worried they became. The Council looked beautiful from the outside. 47 species working together, sharing resources, maintaining peace. But human observers, patient and careful, had spent decades studying the Council's true nature. They saw how member species lost their independence slowly, one small compromise at a time. They saw how the founding members of the Council held all the real power, while newer members provided resources and labor. They saw how species that tried to leave were isolated, sanctioned, and eventually forced back into compliance. So humanity made a choice. They would stay hidden. They would build their colonies quietly in their own corner of space. They would watch and learn but never reveal themselves. It was a hard choice, a lonely choice, but it kept them free. Now that freedom was being threatened. The Council fleet continued its approach, could see their trajectory clearly now. They would reach the Sol system in less than a week. Earth would have to make a decision, submit to the Council's demands or fight to maintain their independence. Thought about his own children, living safely on Mars. He thought about the billions of humans spread across dozens of colonies, all of them free to live their lives as they chose. He thought about what would happen if the Council took control. Would his remember what it meant to be human? Or would they become just another species in the Council's vast machine? The hours passed slowly. Finally, a new message arrived from Earth. Opened it, his hands steady despite the tension he felt. Ambassador Minu's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "All stations," Minu said. "Earth has made its decision. We will not submit. We will not join. If the Council enters our space, we will respond. Prepare for possible conflict, and pray that wisdom prevails." The message ended. Looked at. Her face had gone pale. She understood now. After 300 years of silence, humanity was about to make itself heard, and the galaxy was about to learn that silence was never weakness. It was preparation. The Council fleet continued its approach, unaware of the mistake they were making. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system like a swarm of metal insects. Admiral watched them appear on her tactical display, each ship represented by a glowing dot. There were 215 vessels, she counted, an impressive force by any standard. The Council clearly wanted to make a statement. Stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable, hidden deep within an asteroid field near Jupiter. Her ship and 50 others like it had been waiting here for years, disguised as mining operations. The Council had no idea they existed. That was exactly how wanted it. Lieutenant stood beside her, his young face trying hard to hide his nervousness. He had never seen an alien ship before today. None of his generation had. They had grown up in a humanity that was completely alone in the darkness, waiting for a threat that might never come. Now the threat was here, and was learning what his years of training had prepared him for. "They're broadcasting," the communications officer announced. "All frequencies, multiple languages." "Let's hear it," said calmly. The alien voice filled the bridge. It was artificial, computer-generated to be pleasant and threatening. The translation came through clearly. "Attention, human civilization. This is Counselor of the Galactic Council. We come in peace and friendship. For too long, you have remained isolated from the galactic community. This isolation must end. We offer you the opportunity to join us, to share in the prosperity and knowledge of 47 species working together. You have 72 hours to respond. Failure to respond will be considered a rejection of peace, and we will be forced to take corrective action." The transmission repeated in dozens of languages. The message was clear: join us or face the consequences. Lieutenant looked at Admiral. "Corrective action, that sounds like a threat." "That's exactly what it is," replied. "They're just too polite to say it directly." She turned to her communications officer. "Get me a secure line to Earth, priority 1. While the connection was being established, studied the Council fleet formation. They were confident she could see that. Their ships moved in standard patrol patterns, as if they expected no resistance. Why would they? As far as the Council knew, humanity was a single-planet species with no real military capability. They had no idea what 300 years of preparation looked like. The secure channel opened. Ambassador Minu appeared on the screen, looking older than remembered. Behind him, she could see the chaos of the United Assembly emergency session. Voices arguing, people shouting, the weight of an impossible decision crushing down on everyone. "Admiral," Minu said, "have you reviewed the Council's ultimatum?" "Yes, sir, 72 hours. They're not leaving us much choice." "Earth's leadership is divided," Minu admitted. "Some want to negotiate, some want to fight, some want to run and hide deeper in space." He paused, his eyes tired. "I've been arguing for isolation for 40 years. Now I'm being asked if I'm willing to start a war to maintain it." Understood the weight of that question. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, but she had also hoped it would never come. War was easy to start and hard to stop, but surrender was even worse. "What are your orders, sir?" she asked. Before Minu could answer, another voice came through the channel. Doctor from the Neptune station had joined the call. Her face was urgent, passionate. "Ambassador, Admiral, please listen. This doesn't have to be a war. We can talk to them. We can negotiate terms. Maybe we can join the Council but keep our independence. Maybe we can change them from the inside." "Doctor," Minu said gently, "I admire your optimism. But we've been studying the Council for 3 centuries. We know how this ends. Species that join willingly end up just as controlled as species that are forced to join. The Council doesn't allow real independence." "But we could be different," insisted. "We could be strong enough to resist their control. We could help the other species who are suffering." Watched this debate and felt sympathy for both of them. Represented humanity's hope, its desire to be part of something bigger. Minu represented humanity's wisdom, learned through careful observation. Both of them were right in their own way, but right now, humanity needed to make a choice. "The 72 hours are counting down," said. "What do you want me to do?" Minu looked away from the camera, listening to voices couldn't hear. The debate on Earth was clearly intense. Finally, he looked back. "Earth's leadership has authorized a response. Captain will deliver it. But Admiral, you need to be ready. If this goes badly, if the Council attacks, you have full authorization to defend human space by any means necessary." "Understood," said. She had waited her whole career to hear those words. She prayed she would never have to act on them. The 72 hours passed slowly. Throughout the Sol system, human military forces quietly moved into position. Ships emerged from hiding spots in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and orbital debris. The Council fleet remained at the edge of the system, waiting patiently for humanity's response. Counselor sat in his command ship, confident and relaxed. He had done this dozens of times before with other species. Some joined immediately, grateful for the opportunity. Others resisted at first but saw reason after a show of force. Either way, the result was always the same. Another species added to the Council, another world contributing to the greater good. His aide officer seemed more nervous. "Counselor, what if they refuse? What if they actually fight?" Laughed, a harsh sound that didn't translate well through his species' vocal cords. "With what? They have no fleet, no weapons capable of threatening us. If they fight, we will subdue them quickly and teach them the error of their ways. Sometimes children need discipline before they understand what's good for them." Officer didn't look convinced, but he said nothing more. The deadline arrived. Across the Council fleet, alien crews waited to hear humanity's answer. Would they join peacefully? Would they beg for more time? Would they simply ignore the ultimatum? Captain's voice came through on all frequencies, calm and clear. He spoke in perfect council standard language, the diplomatic tongue used by all member species. There was no fear in his voice, no uncertainty, just a simple statement. This is Captain of Earth. We have received your message. Our answer is no. We will not join your council. We will not accept your guidance. We will not submit to your authority. Leave our space immediately. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Silence fell across both fleets. On his command ship, Counselor's face twisted in anger. Only warning. They dare threaten us. They dare speak to the Galactic Council with such arrogance. He stood up, his body rigid with fury. All ships advance to the inner system. Prepare to seize their outer colonies. Show these primitives what happens when they reject the Council's friendship. Officer wanted to protest, wanted to suggest caution, but he knew his superior would not listen. The Council fleet began moving forward, engines burning bright in the darkness. On the Indomitable, Admiral watched them come. Lieutenant looked at her, waiting for orders. Around them, the bridge crew sat ready at their stations. "They're really doing it," said quietly. "They're actually attacking." "Yes," replied. "They made their choice. Now we make ours." She took a deep breath. After 300 years of silence, after 300 years of preparation, humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. "All ships," commanded, "and engage, show them the price of their mistake." Throughout the Sol system, human warships dropped their camouflage and powered up their weapons. The Council was about to learn a hard lesson. Earth had stayed silent not because they were weak. They stayed silent because they were wise enough to prepare for this exact moment. The fatal mistake had been made. Now came the consequences. The Council fleet approached Titan with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Counselor expected token resistance, perhaps a few primitive weapons fired in desperation before the humans surrendered. What he found instead was an empty colony and a trap that had been centuries in the making. Commander watched from her stealth ship, hidden in the shadow of Saturn's rings. She commanded humanity's Special Warfare Division, the units that most humans didn't even know existed. While the regular fleet prepared for direct combat, teams had spent weeks preparing Titan for visitors. Every building was rigged. Every tunnel was monitored. Every approach vector was covered by hidden weapons. "They're entering the trap," her tactical officer reported. 15 Council ships moving into close orbit. They're scanning the colony facilities. Smiled coldly. Let them scan. Let them think they understood what they were looking at. The truth would reveal itself soon enough. On the Council flagship, Officer studied his sensor readings with growing unease. The human colony appeared abandoned, but there was something wrong about the pattern. The evacuation had been too clean, too organized. Species that were truly primitive didn't evacuate this efficiently. "Counselor," said carefully, "I recommend we proceed with caution. These readings are unusual." "Unusual how?" demanded. "I see an empty colony. I see humans who ran away. I see exactly what I expected to see." He turned to his fleet commander. "Send landing teams. Secure the facilities. Show these humans that running won't save them." The landing ships launched, descending toward Titan's surface. They were halfway down when gave the order. "Now!" The trap sprang with perfect precision. Hidden missile batteries emerged from beneath Titan's frozen surface. Emplacements that had been disguised as mining equipment suddenly powered up. And from the rings of Saturn, dozens of human warships dropped their stealth fields and became visible for the first time. The Council ships had no time to react. Human-fired slugs of metal accelerated to incredible speeds, punching through alien shields like they weren't even there. Missiles that could think and adapt locked onto their targets, evading countermeasures that should have stopped them. Human fighters emerged from launch bays, moving with impossible agility as they swarmed around the larger Council vessels. Engineer watched the battle from his station aboard one of the human carriers. He had designed many of the weapons systems being used today. the phase shift technology that let human ships slip partially out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit. The adaptive AI systems that learned from each enemy move and adjusted tactics in real time. 300 years of isolation hadn't made humanity weak. It had given them time to build weapons the galaxy had never seen. The battle lasted less than an hour. 30 Council ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest retreated in chaos, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. Not a single human vessel was lost. Admiral ordered an immediate withdrawal. This wasn't about conquest or revenge. It was about sending a message. The human ships vanished back into the darkness, leaving the Council to count their dead and wonder what had just happened. Counselor sat in his command chair, his body trembling with shock and rage. 30 ships. 30 ships destroyed by a species that wasn't supposed to have any military capability at all. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore order to the fleet, to treat the wounded, to understand what they had just faced. Officer approached him carefully. "Counselor, we need to withdraw. We need to report to the Council and request reinforcements. These humans are far more dangerous than we thought." "No," said through clenched teeth. "We are not retreating like cowards. We are the Galactic Council. We do not run from primitives, no matter what tricks they've learned." He stood up, forcing his body to stop shaking. "Send a message to the Council core worlds. Tell them we need a real war fleet. Tell them we need enough ships to crush these humans once and for all." Commander began the second phase of her operation. While the Council fleet regrouped, she started broadcasting across all Council communication frequencies. Her message was simple but devastating. "People of the Galactic Council," she said, "you have been lied to. Your governments tell you that the Council exists to bring peace and prosperity to all species. But we have been watching you for 300 years. We know the truth." Her broadcasts included footage of the battle, showing how easily human technology had defeated Council ships. But more importantly, she included information that humanity had gathered through decades of careful observation. Secret Council communications showing how founding member species exploited newer members. Economic data proving that the Council's trade policies enriched the powerful and impoverished the weak. Intelligence reports about how species that tried to leave were punished and isolated. "We are not your enemy," continued. "Your own leadership is your enemy. They have built a system that serves them while pretending to serve you. We stayed silent because we saw what joining the Council would cost us. Now we're speaking because you deserve to know the truth." The broadcast spread through Council space like wildfire. On dozens of worlds, member species began asking questions their governments couldn't answer. Some believed the human propaganda was lies. Others had suspected the truth for years and now had proof. The Council's internal unity began to crack. On Earth, Ambassador Minu watched the reports coming in from Council space. The strategy was working. Humanity was winning not just through military force but through information. By revealing the Council's secrets, they were undermining the entire system from within. Doctor sat beside him, her face pale. She had wanted humanity to join the galaxy, to make friends with alien species. Now she was watching humanity tear apart the galactic order. "Is this really necessary?" she asked quietly. "All this chaos, all this destruction?" "Yes," Minu replied, "because the alternative is submission, and submission leads to everything we've been trying to avoid." He looked at her. "You wanted humanity to join the galaxy. We are joining it, just not in the way the Council wanted." Councilors' request for reinforcements reached the Council core worlds. The leadership debated for days. Many species were reluctant to commit more ships to a war against an unknown enemy. The human broadcasts had made some species doubt whether the fight was even justified. But the Council's founding members saw the real threat. If humans were allowed to defeat them, if humans were allowed to spread their propaganda freely, the entire Council system might collapse. Finally, authorization came through. A war fleet of over 1,000 ships would be assembled. It would take time to gather such a force, but when it arrived, it would be overwhelming. No amount of human trickery could stand against such numbers. Officer received the news with mixed feelings. Part of him was relieved that proper reinforcements were coming. Another part of him remembered the human captain's warning. This is your only warning. What if the humans had been telling the truth? What if that first battle hadn't been them fighting at their full strength? What if it had only been a demonstration? He tried to share his concerns with Counselor, but the Counselor dismissed them. You worry too much. Yes, the humans surprised us. Yes, they have better technology than we expected. But they're still just one species in one small corner of space. When our war fleet arrives, we will teach them the price of defying the Council. Engineer stood in a secure facility deep beneath Earth's surface, watching his latest creation being activated for the first time. It was an artificial intelligence warfare system, capable of coordinating entire fleets without any biological crew delays. The AI could analyze battle data in microseconds, predict enemy moves before they happened, and adjust tactics faster than any living commander. Are we really going to use this? One of his assistants asked nervously. An AI this powerful, it could make decisions we can't control. That's exactly why we'll use it, replied. The Council is bringing overwhelming numbers. The only way to counter that is with overwhelming intelligence. Our AI will see patterns and opportunities that human commanders would miss. It will fight the kind of battle that biological minds can't imagine. Admiral received the intelligence reports about the Council's war fleet, 1,000 ships. It was a terrifying number, but she had known this was coming. Humanity's first victory had been important, but it was only the beginning. The real test was still ahead. Lieutenant looked at the projections and felt fear grip his heart. Admiral, can we really fight that many ships, even with our technology? Smiled grimly. We're about to find out, but remember, we've been preparing for this for 300 years. The Council thinks they know what we're capable of. They're wrong. She turned to her communications officer. Send a message to all fleet commanders. Begin Phase 2 of the defense plan. The Council wants a war. We're going to give them one they'll never forget. The Council war fleet arrived in force, over 1,000 ships strong, representing the combined military might of 47 species. Fleet Admiral watched them emerge from faster-than-light travel on her tactical displays. She stood in the command center deep within the moon, coordinating humanity's entire defensive network. This would be her greatest challenge and possibly her final battle. The Council fleet moved with overwhelming confidence. They had numbers, experience, and the backing of an entire galactic civilization. What could one species do against such power? Counselor, commanding from his new flagship, believed victory was certain. The humans had surprised him once. It would not happen again. Let them come. Past Neptune, past Uranus, past Saturn. The Council fleet penetrated deeper into the Sol system than any alien force had ever reached. They passed Mars, entering the inner system within sight of Earth itself. Wanted humanity to see their doom approaching. He wanted them to understand the price of defiance. They're exactly where we want them, said calmly. Around her, dozens of officers monitored screens showing the battle space. Captain, are your systems ready? Captain sat aboard the experimental ship Perseus, humanity's first fully AI-integrated warship. Around him, holographic displays showed data flowing faster than any human could process. The artificial intelligence systems were awake and calculating, running millions of combat simulations per second. We're ready, Admiral, reported. His voice was steady, but inside he felt the weight of what was about to happen. This AI system could win the battle, but it could also make decisions that humans might not agree with. There was no turning back now. All units, ordered, execute Operation Crossfire. Throughout the Sol system, space itself seemed to tear open. Quantum tunnels, technology that humanity had kept absolutely secret, allowed ships to travel instantly across vast distances. Human warships emerged not from hiding spots in the local system, but from bases light years away. Within seconds, the Council fleet found itself surrounded by hundreds of human vessels appearing from impossible angles. The AI systems coordinated the assault with inhuman precision. Every human ship knew exactly where to be, exactly when to fire, exactly how to move to maximize damage while minimizing risk. The battle became a dance of mathematics and physics that no biological mind could fully comprehend. Captain watched his AI make decisions in microseconds. The Perseus twisted through space in maneuvers that would have killed a biological crew with the acceleration forces. Weapons fired with perfect timing, hitting enemy ships at their weakest points. The ship anticipated enemy movements before they happened, responding to threats that hadn't even fully formed yet. Lieutenant, commanding a squadron of human fighters, tried to keep up with the AI-coordinated attack plan. His ships moved in formation, striking at Council vessels that the AI had marked as priority targets. Around him, the battle raged in 3 dimensions. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Ships died in silence. And somehow, impossibly, the humans were winning. The Council fleet fought back with desperate fury. They had overwhelming numbers and they used them. Thousands of missiles filled space. Energy weapons carved through the dark. Some human ships died, their crews giving their lives to protect Earth. But for every human ship destroyed, 10 Council vessels fell. The AI systems were simply too fast, too smart, too perfectly coordinated. Admiral commanded a battle group near Jupiter, engaging Council ships that tried to break through the human lines. She watched the battle data flowing across her screens and felt awe at what engineer had created. The AI wasn't just fighting efficiently. It was learning and adapting in real time, becoming better with each passing minute. Admiral, one of her officers, called out, "The Council flagship is trying to withdraw. Should we pursue?" Check the tactical situation. The Council fleet was breaking apart, their formations shattered, their morale crumbling. Flagship was indeed trying to escape, its engines burning at maximum power. "Let them run," she ordered. "We're not here to annihilate them. We're here to teach them." The battle raged for 3 days. The Council lost hundreds of ships. Human casualties, while significant, were far lower than they should have been against such numbers. The AI systems had minimized losses while maximizing the psychological impact on the enemy. On the 4th day, Fleet Admiral opened a communication channel to every ship in the battle space, human and alien alike. Lieutenant appeared on the screens, young and earnest, speaking for his generation. "We know you're watching this," said, addressing the Council crews. "We know you're confused and afraid. You came here thinking we were primitives, easy prey for your mighty Council, but we're not primitives. We've been watching you for 300 years. We stayed silent not because we were afraid or ignorant. We stayed silent because we saw what you really are." Doctor appeared next, finally given the chance to speak to aliens like she had always wanted. But her message wasn't the one she had once imagined. The Galactic Council isn't a force for unity and peace. It's a system of control where the strong exploit the weak while calling it cooperation. We have the evidence. We have your own secret communications. We know how member species are manipulated and used. The broadcasts included massive amounts of data, years of intercepted Council transmissions, decoded and analyzed. Financial records showing how the Council's trade policies enriched founding members while impoverishing newer ones. Intelligence files about how dissenting species were punished. The truth laid bare for everyone to see. On Council worlds across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Species that had doubted their governments now had proof of corruption. Protests erupted on dozens of planets. Some Council representatives tried to deny the evidence, calling it human propaganda. But the data was too detailed, too obviously real. High Counselor, a pragmatic leader who had opposed expedition from the beginning, saw his opportunity. He called an emergency council session and moved to remove from power. The vote was close, but it passed. Was stripped of his authority, his failed war used as evidence of his poor judgment. Immediately opened emergency negotiations with Earth. He knew the Council had lost this war, not just militarily but morally. The humans had revealed truths that couldn't be buried again. The only question now was whether the Council would collapse entirely or could be reformed. Admiral accepted a ceasefire, but on strict terms. The Council fleet would withdraw completely from human space. All Council surveillance of Earth would end. Any attempt to return with hostile intent would be considered an act of war that humanity was now proven capable of winning. Officer, watching the defeated Council fleet retreat, finally understood what had happened. The humans had never been trying to conquer anyone. They had been trying to wake the galaxy up, to show member species the truth about the system they lived under. The military victories were impressive, but the information warfare was devastating. He thought about his own species, how they had joined the Council 200 years ago with such hope, how that hope had slowly faded as Council regulations restricted their economy, their culture, their freedom. He had blamed his own government for their decline. Now he knew the truth. The Council itself was the problem. Captain powered down the AI systems aboard the Perseus. The artificial intelligence had performed beyond expectations, but it had also made him uncomfortable. During the battle, there had been moments when the AI suggested tactics that would have been more efficient but more brutal. Had those suggestions, choosing the harder path that preserved both enemy and friendly lives. The AI had learned from that, incorporating human values into its decision-making. Perhaps that was the real lesson. Technology was powerful, but it needed human wisdom to guide it. On Earth, Ambassador Menu stood before the United Assembly and made his final report as the architect of humanity's isolation policy. For 300 years, we stayed silent. Many of you questioned that choice. Some called it cowardice. Some called it paranoia. But now you've seen why we waited. We waited until we were strong enough to face the galaxy on our terms. We waited until we understood the true nature of the galactic order. We waited until we could speak with our own voice, rather than accepting someone else's script. The assembly erupted in applause. Earth had faced the galaxy's greatest power and won, but Menu felt no triumph. He knew this was just the beginning. The Council was wounded but not destroyed. The galaxy was in chaos, but order would eventually return. The question was what kind of order would emerge from this chaos. Commander compiled her final intelligence reports, analyzing the Council's internal situation. Multiple species were threatening to leave the Council entirely. Others were demanding reforms. The whole galactic order was teetering on the edge of collapse. And in the middle of it all, humanity stood as the catalyst that had started this transformation. The battle was over. Humanity had won, but the real work was just beginning. The ancient space station hung at the galactic rim, far from any star system, a neutral ground built centuries ago for meetings between species. It had rarely been used. Most species preferred to meet on Council worlds under Council supervision. But now, with the Council itself in crisis, this forgotten station became the center of galactic attention. Ambassador Menu stood in the station's main conference hall, looking out at the representatives of over 40 species. Some were familiar faces from intercepted communications. Others he had never seen before. All of them looked desperate, angry, or afraid. The galaxy's old order was crumbling, and no one knew what would replace it. Beside Menu stood Captain, Admiral, and Doctor. They represented different aspects of humanity's journey. The patient watcher who had maintained the silence. The warrior who had proven humanity's strength. The dreamer who had always believed humanity should reach out to the stars. Together, they would speak for Earth. High Counselor approached them, his alien features showing exhaustion. He had spent the last weeks trying to hold the Council together as member species threatened to tear it apart. Some wanted to surrender to humanity. Others wanted to continue fighting. Most were simply confused and scared. "Ambassador," said through his translator device, "thank you for agreeing to meet. I know humanity has little reason to trust the Council." "We have every reason to distrust you," Minyu replied honestly. "But we're here because we understand the galaxy needs something better than chaos. The question is whether you're ready to build it." The conference began with admission of the Council's failures. It was a remarkable moment, hearing the second most powerful individual in the galaxy admit that the system he represented was corrupt and exploitative. Some Council representatives looked shocked. Others looked relieved that someone finally said it out loud. "The human broadcasts revealed truths we should have addressed long ago," continued. "The Council was created with noble goals, but over time it became a tool for powerful species to control weaker ones. We claimed to bring unity, but we brought submission instead." He looked directly at the human delegation. "You were right to stay away, and you were right to stop us when we tried to force you to join." Doctor listened to this with conflicting emotions. Part of her felt vindicated. She had always believed some aliens wanted genuine cooperation. Another part felt sad, realizing how much the Council had fallen from its original ideals. She glanced at Minyu and saw him watching carefully, analyzing every word for truth or deception. Then came the crucial question. A representative from the species the same species had mentioned months ago stood to speak. "What does humanity want? You've proven you can defeat us militarily. You've exposed our corruption to the entire galaxy. Do you intend to conquer us, to replace the Council with your own empire?" The hall fell silent. Every species present wanted to hear the answer. Would Earth become the new dominant power, ruling the galaxy through force? Or did they have something else in mind? Fleet Admiral stepped forward. She had not planned to speak, but this question required her perspective. "We don't want an empire. We spent 300 years watching the Council's empire, and we saw what empires do. They corrupt those who rule them and enslave those who don't. No, we have different terms." She activated a holographic display showing humanity's proposal. It was detailed and specific, the result of weeks of careful planning on Earth. The terms were radical but simple. "First," said, "Earth will not join the Galactic Council. We maintain our sovereignty and independence absolutely. Second, the Council must reform itself into a genuine federation of equals, where no species has more power than others. Third, any species that wishes to leave the Council may do so without punishment or sanctions. Fourth, humanity will share some of our technology with species that commit to peaceful development and genuine independence." Commander added the security provisions. Any species that leaves the Council and requests Earth's protection during their transition will receive it. Any species being exploited or threatened by the old Council system can appeal to us for assistance. We will act as guarantors of freedom, not rulers of an empire. The hall erupted in debate. Some species saw opportunity, others saw threat. The representatives argued in dozens of languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the chaos. Officer sat among his species delegation, listening carefully. The human terms were generous but also clever. By offering protection to departing species, they ensured the Council couldn't hold itself together through fear. By refusing to rule directly, they avoided the corruption that came with empire. By sharing technology selectively, they maintained their military advantage while helping level the galactic playing field. "They're not trying to replace the Council," said quietly to his superior. "They're trying to make the Council obsolete." His superior, an older diplomat who had served the Council for decades, nodded slowly. "And they're succeeding. Look around this room. Half these species are already planning to leave. The other half are demanding reforms we can't refuse. The Council, as we knew it, is finished." Engineer presented humanity's technology sharing program. He explained which technologies Earth was willing to share and which they would keep secret. The shared technologies were carefully chosen: advanced power generation, basic quantum communication, improved medical techniques. Nothing that could be easily weaponized, but enough to help species become more independent and self-sufficient. "We're not doing this out of pure generosity," admitted. "We're doing it because we understand that a galaxy of free, independent species is safer than a galaxy dominated by one power, even if that power is us." High Counselor listened to all of this and felt the weight of history. The Council had stood for over 3,000 years. Now it would either transform completely or collapse entirely. He knew which option he preferred, even if it meant giving up much of his own power. "I accept these terms," announced. "On behalf of the Council's founding members, I commit to immediate reforms. We will restructure the Council into a voluntary federation. We will release all punitive sanctions against member species. We will open our communications and financial records to independent review." He paused. "And we will ask humanity to help us become what we always claimed to be, a true community of equals." Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed. 15 species immediately announced their departure from the Council, requesting Earth's protection during their transition. 20 more demanded seats on a reformed Council leadership, breaking the founding members' monopoly on power. The old hierarchy crumbled, replaced by something messy and uncertain, but genuinely more democratic. Captain's AI systems were partially shared with species that signed strict peaceful use agreements. The artificial intelligence technology created a new balance of power, making it harder for any single species to dominate others through military force. Lieutenant found himself leading training missions, teaching alien crews how to use some of the technologies humanity was sharing. He discovered that many aliens were not so different from humans. They wanted freedom, security, and a chance to build good lives for their children. The Council's oppression had made them seem weak. Given real opportunity, they were proving capable and creative. 5 years passed. Captain retired to Earth, spending his evenings watching the stars from his home in Seoul. The galaxy was noisier now than when he first took command of the Neptune station. Human ships traveled openly, trading with dozens of species. Earth's culture was spreading through the stars, and alien cultures were reaching Earth in return. It wasn't the silence he had maintained for so long, but it was something better. Doctor ran an embassy program, training both humans and aliens to work together as genuine partners. She had finally gotten her wish to engage with alien species, though not in the way she once imagined. The relationships were more complex than she expected, requiring constant negotiation and compromise. But they were real relationships between equals, not the forced unity the Council had imposed. Admiral became humanity's military liaison to the reformed Council. Her job was to ensure that no species returned to the old ways of exploitation. It was demanding work, requiring constant vigilance, but she found it more satisfying than combat. Building peace was harder than winning wars, but the results lasted longer. Commander continued her intelligence work, monitoring the galaxy for threats to the new order. There were still species that missed the old Council's hierarchy, powerful groups that wanted to restore their advantages. Made sure they understood that Earth was watching, ready to intervene if necessary. Fleet Admiral worked with Engineer on the next generation of defensive technology. They knew peace was fragile. Humanity needed to stay strong to guarantee the freedom they had fought for. But they also understood that strength without restraint would turn them into the very thing they had fought against. Ambassador Minyu, now elderly and considering retirement, reflected on humanity's journey. 300 years of silence, followed by a brief but decisive war, followed by a difficult peace. They could have conquered the galaxy. They could have replaced the Council with their own empire. Instead, they chose the harder path of helping others achieve freedom while maintaining their own independence. Was it worth it? A young diplomat asked him one day. All those years of isolation, all the sacrifices. Minyu looked at the reports on his desk, dozens of species thriving in their newfound independence. The Reformed Council actually serving its members instead of exploiting them. A galaxy that was chaotic and messy but genuinely free. Yes, he said simply, it was worth it. The story ended not with a grand victory, but with a quiet evening on a space station orbiting a world that had just achieved independence from the old council. A new species was celebrating their freedom, their first day as a truly sovereign civilization. They sent a message to Earth, thanking humanity for their help. Captain, monitoring communications from his retirement home, saw the message. He smiled, remembering the young officer he had been when humanity first made the choice to stay silent. They had been so afraid back then, so uncertain about their place in the galaxy. Now they knew. Earth had stayed silent not because they were weak, but because they were wise. They had spoken not as conquerors but as liberators. They had proven that power without domination was possible, that strength could serve freedom rather than destroy it. A new message appeared on screen. Another species making first contact with the galaxy, nervous and uncertain about what they would find. The Reformed Council was sending them a welcoming message. But so was Earth. Read the human transmission and felt pride. Welcome to the stars. You are free. We will make sure you stay that way. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had found its purpose. Not to rule, but to guard. Not to conquer, but to protect. Not to impose their will, but to ensure others could determine their own. Earth had stayed silent for 300 years. When they finally spoke, they changed everything. And in the end, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.